I'm a fill-in today. So today is Coffee and Conversation. We have the Norfolk Register of Deeds, Bill O'Donnell, joining us. And he's going to talk to us about the registry, records, which holds records for Norfolk County, cataloging and housing more than 13.1 million land documents. And the program will include information for you all and homeowners, such as the Homestead Act, mortgage and mortgage discharges, and the anti-property fraud consumer notification service. So with that, I'd like to introduce Bill O'Donnell. And it seems like it's almost Old Home Week for him here.
Yeah, seeing a lot of friends, and saw my old babysitter. Yeah, a lot of time has gone by, huh? Well, I'm Bill O'Donnell. I grew up in Norwood. I'm still in Norwood. And they do let me into Walpole here. I know the big rivalry, Norwood-Walpole, but it's a great town, and always enjoy it. And thanks to the Senior Center for putting this on, and thank you for the introduction. A lot of people, yes, I grew up in Norwood, and I ended up at the Registry of Deeds, and that's what I'm here to talk about. But a lot of people don't know what the Registry of Deeds is or what we do. When you think about it, it's the biggest asset most of us have, our homes. And that's what the registry deals with. And in the books that you have, a lot of you may have already bought a home or sold a home. Take that information back to your sons or your daughters, your nieces and nephews, grandkids, because they're out working, but they're the ones that hopefully you get some information out of this, and we'll go from there. I was asked by Mimi just to talk about where the registry is and what have you done there. And a lot of it, what we've done really comes back to background. I grew up in Norwood and went to school down Washington, D.C., and got to work for Congressman Joe Moakley. And what I learned from him was, if you're going to be in government, try to make it work for the people. Try to provide good service. I used to work as an assistant district attorney, so I came back to Norwood and went to Boston College Law School, worked as an assistant district attorney for then district attorney Bill Delahunt, and then went into the private sector. And so the private sector is good because my son just got married, my daughter got married a few years ago. I'm glad I went into the private sector. I loved working for Bill Delahunt, but not at the first of the month when the budget was due. Yes. And but what I've tried to do is the things you learn in the private sector, you learn. You have budgets to keep. You have, employees to get paid, vendors to get paid, and that's what we try to do at the registry. The registry, you can see from that green book you have, it's located at 649 High Street, and it's been in Dedham since 1793. So, Norfolk County was established in 1793, and actually was established, John Hancock, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, signed the law that Norfolk County was to be established, and Walpole is one of the 28 communities in Norfolk County. So there's a lot of history. I don't tell good jokes or sing or anything like that, but there is a lot of good trivia in Norfolk County, and actually the answers in some of those books. But there were 4 presidents born in Norfolk County. Does anyone know who they are? John Adams and John Quincy Adams, from Braintree or Quincy, depending on where you grew up. John Kennedy, yes, we just said. Brookline, a lot of people don't realize Brookline is part of Norfolk County. And actually, in all our lifetime, the 4th president, George Herbert Walker Bush, was actually born in Milton. So not too many counties have 4 presidents, and not too many registries have a deed from the 2nd president of the United States, John Adams, to John Quincy Adams. So when I became register, I tried to take that approach, like, hey, we want to provide good service. And how did we do that? Well, first of all, we had to modernize it. And wasn't that, I'm getting older and I've been there a bit, but when I first got there, there was no computers. There was no, they were just starting the internet, believe it or not. And now we take all the things we take for granted. So if you go on our website, and the link is, and the information is in the books there, www.norfolkdeeds.org, we have a website. And a lot of people even back then were saying, why should government have a website? Imagine that. Now think about it. You just things we take for granted, that we just look up information. But you can go to our website. We have information on the homestead, which I'll talk about. We have information for first-time home buyers. We have information if you pay off your mortgage, what you should be looking for with mortgage discharges, which we will talk about. But what we tried to do was use what was going on in the community, technology and advances. So all that information, we try to make the registry, bring it into people's homes and businesses. So if you go to our website, yes, you can get information, but you can also look up all these records. If you go to www.norfolkdeeds.org, every document is online back to 1793. And I got to think, I still play hockey. I shouldn't. I'm playing with kids I coached. But one thing I learned from sports, there's no I in team. We have a great team at the registry. A lot of people embrace change, and that's why all those records are online, and you can look them up. And the beauty is, if you need to get a copy of anything, we can bring the registry to the Walpole Senior Center. So we have Ed and Jonathan here. Those computers tie into our records, and we can print all the documents. So that was a big modernization initiative. Also, we took steps to protect the records. All those records get backed up, things that you learn in the private sector. So the deeds to your house, the information on your house, yes, we still do it the old-fashioned way. We might have everything on the computers, but we print the books. So if you want to come down and go through the books, all the documents back to 1793 are in the books, but we also back up that information, and it goes to Iron Mountain has a couple of sites. One of them a renovated nuclear bunker, believe it or not, in Rhode Island. So all that information gets backed up. So that's some of the business side of the registry that we do. And you might say, well, what kind of records get recorded at the registry? They're your community land records. The deed to your house gets recorded there. Here in Walpole, if your Board of Appeal issued a permit or a variance, the variance gets recorded. You have conservation commissions that might give orders because you're near water. So all kinds of documents get recorded there. And we all have to borrow money. I still in Norwood, I had 3 children, and, luckily all 3 of them went to college, but, we need money for different things. So you're refinancing and you're doing things like that. So mortgages get recorded at the registry, and mortgage discharges. So those are the type of things that get recorded. I was asked to talk about, one thing I do want to say about the documents. From 1793 to 1900, all the documents were handwritten. And we had a History Comes Alive project where we were the first registry in New England, some say in the country, where we transcribed all those written documents, because they were hard to read. But those are the legal documents. I went to St. Catherine's in Norwood. Believe me, I learned cursive. The nuns, the Sisters of St. Joseph made sure of that. My youngest son, some of his friends, I don't think they can read cursive. They just know printing and all that. That's not why we did it. But that's another story for another day. We did it because there's a lot of history in those documents from 1793 to 1900. What happened in 1900? Well, maybe that register, his name was Burdekin, came out to Walpole and talked about his modernization initiative, which was, believe it or not, the typewriter. They started typing the documents, and that's why they were easy to read. But from 1900 back, it was all handwritten. All those documents now are transcribed. So some of the books in the black folder, if you look at some of the deeds, there was a section where it shows the first deed, book 1, page 1 is handwritten, and then the transcribed one. And actually, David McCulloch, who passed away a few years ago, actually wrote a nice note to us saying how much easier it is to do research because those documents were transcribed. But out of the transcription, and that page, some of the books there, I like history, so that's why we give out these books. But you'll see we had 3 books. One deals with when the registry, believe it or not, was the 225th anniversary in 2018, and we did a book. And one of the pages has the issue, David McCulloch. It shows, if you look in that blue book, it shows a handwritten document but then it shows the transcribed document, and you can see how, again, the legal document's the transcribed document, the handwritten document, but it shows how easy it is to read, and there's the little note from David McCulloch. But we did this book to celebrate the 225th, and you can see it was a lot of interesting people here in Norfolk County, where, Lee Remick, actually Sunita Williams. Actually, she's still up in space, but she grew up in Needham. I met her. I used to run too at the Falmouth Road Race, and I met her there. And so there's a lot of interesting. Howard Johnson was born in Milton. So what we did was try to do a book. It's some interesting history, and then we renovated the registry, and we did another book in 2019. So there's some interesting things, and probably the book that we're most proud of, and again, I'm mentioning these books because you'll see some of the old deeds in there, but we did a book, and it came out in 2023. It's We Remember Our Veterans, and we have, actually, Mrs. Collin, there's some of the lanes in here. So I ran into someone that knew my uncles, and some of the pictures of the Marines and the Air Force people, and my father in the Navy are actually in here. But thanks to the veterans. But again, what we did, we have information about the services and different histories, but we also have stories, Medal of Honor recipients from Norfolk County. We have, we went through different, different veterans organizations submitted names from, people from Bellingham and, people from all over. There's 28 communities in Norfolk County. So hopefully you enjoy the readings. Big thing, consumer issues. And again, I could talk about history, but let's talk about the here and now. Here are some of the consumer issues. Homestead is a big one. But why don't I talk a little bit about scams before I get there? At the registry, we've been trying to very proactive when we come to groups like this. There's a group out there for $10. They'll solicit from you to get a homestead form. Now, in your green folder, there's a free homestead form. Actually, you can download the homestead form off our website. So if some group sends you a solicitation, and they don't even fill out the form for you, it's just a blank form. And there's a lot of groups like this. There's another group you'll see in the green folder. For $59, they'll get you a certified copy of your deed. And it's nice to have a certified copy of your deed. I always say that group sends out a letter. They also had a website where you think you couldn't get up in the morning unless you had a certified copy of your deed. Look, if you want one certified, when we come out to these groups, we certify it for free. But I always tell people, when you go to sell your house, the real estate professionals that are involved, whether it's the attorney or the real estate broker, they'll come to the registry either online or come there and get the information. It is good to have a copy of your deed. I think it's good. I'm type A, and my wife's telling me I got to purge all this stuff and get it out of the house, but I like it. Some people, I just want you to have a comfort level that all the information is at the registry. And the takeaway is do not, and there's an article in that green folder from the Herald, do not pay $60 for a homestead form. And there's been variations since. Hank Philippi Ryan came by the registry because there's another group that was soliciting. It almost looked like a tax bill, and again, trying to get you to pay. At that time, that was $83, to pay $83, and they would just give you a copy of the deed. It wasn't even certified. It was just a copy of a deed. And again, they prey on everybody, not just elderly. They prey on first-time homeowners, and it continues. There's another group, as I said, they make it look like a tax bill. So that's just kind of a real estate scam that's going on. I'm sure you're right near the police department. They probably come here and talk about different things that are going on. What I would say this, as it relates to your deed, let's see, it was in 2015, we started a consumer notification service. We did it before all these commercials that you see about Title Lock, and there's commercials out there that, they have ex-FBI agents, and there's some reality to what those people are saying. I know they're looking for you to pay for a service. The service we started in 2015 is free. And the reason we did do it was the FBI says the fastest growing white-collar crime is property and mortgage fraud. So we have a consumer notification service, and I've signed up myself, and this is how it works. You sign up, and I get an email for any William O'Donnell that gets recorded at Registry, any document. Now, it could be William J. O'Donnell. I'm William Patrick O'Donnell. Well, it's not me. It could be a William O'Donnell from Norwood, but it's not me. So I get that notice, and I look up the document, and I realize it's not me. But there could be some time where either my wife or I, we get that notice, and we look, and we say, wait a minute, that's the deed to our house. We didn't sign it. Yes. Oh. Sure, thank you. Yep. It's called the Consumer Notification Service. And if there's any questions afterwards, certainly I'm here, or Jonathan. It's on our website under, if you go to our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, it's under services, and it's called the Consumer Notification Service. And what it is you sign up for it in any document that gets recorded in your name, or in a similar name. As I was trying to point out, I've signed up. I get notices for William J. O'Donnell, William T. O'Donnell, William Patrick O'Donnell. But you got to look to see that, that it's you. And what I was trying to get at is there could be a time when my wife and I look at a document and we didn't sign it, or there's an equity line, we didn't sign that. Now, this service does not prevent the fraud. It just allows you to get on it sooner, and who would have thought that when my parents moved and bought a house at Hillside Avenue, they just bought the house. They didn't have to worry. It's a different society. The next time you worried about the house is when you sold it. You didn't have to worry about title. You just had to worry about, if you borrowed money and different things like that. So that's why we did the consumer notification service. And that was done in 2015. And people ask me, well, there's stuff on the commercials. Is it worth it? I go, there's a reason, when you have ex-FBI agents, and they actually have the criminals there saying, oh, yeah, we filed these fraudulent documents. I haven't seen it in Norfolk County, but it's happening. It happened in California. It happened in Illinois. It happened in Philadelphia. So it's only a matter of time when it comes to Massachusetts. I think one of the reasons we haven't seen it as much in Massachusetts is because Massachusetts has a strong lobby for lawyers. They want lawyers to do closings. Now, that doesn't mean a lawyer can do a fraud. I understand that. But most of us who are attorneys, and Ed's over there is an attorney, we work too hard to get our license. We're not going to give up our license. But some of these other states, I have relatives out west, it's like the Wild West. It's not necessarily attorneys doing the closings and things like that. And I think it's worth signing up. And if you're not good on the computer, one thing, my dad climbed poles for the Boston Edison for 38 years. And when he was alive, and you're talking about this modernization initiative and computerizing the registry and having computers so people can come in, he said, remember, many of us don't know anything about computers, don't want to know anything about computers, and don't really care to. That's why we have a customer service center. If you go to 781-461-6101, that's our customer service center. You can call them up. If you sign up for this service and you need a little help, they'll give you some help. If you need to look up something to make sure that that you're not a victim of the fraud. So do not be afraid to sign up for this service because you're not good on the computers. And again, I'll give a shout out to our customer service department. We created a customer service department for that reason. It goes back to working for Joe Moakley. Like, make sure you have something in your office that people can go to and get some answers and get some help. So you're not totally worried. One thing good about Massachusetts, they have, and thank you local legislators, there is a state law that says a fraudulent deed does not convey good title. So if this nice lady owned the house and I'm the scammer and I scammed the house and sold it to this poor person might be out some money, and that's unfortunate. But this person whose original house it was She's going to have some work to do to straighten it out, but she didn't lose her house because there's a state law in Massachusetts that says a fraudulent deed does not convey good title. So we're getting a lot of questions because it's out there. There are a lot of unscrupulous people. I saw it when I was in the district attorney's office, but I worked there a long time ago. The level of unscrupulous people has gone to a new level, really. But I just want people to be comforted that if you find yourself in that situation, it's still your house. It's just you're going to have some issues. Probably, if someone had their credit cards compromised, they understand. They have to do a few things. It's kind of a mess, and you have to do some due diligence to kind of straighten that out. Another consumer issue is mortgages. We all have to borrow money, and when you borrow money, the bank puts a mortgage, make sure it gets recorded at the registry. And they do that because if you don't pay, you're going to get foreclosed on. And that's another issue if you go to our website. It doesn't matter whether you're Walpole, Norwood. In every community in Norfolk County, there's been somebody struggling with foreclosure. So if you know anyone in that situation, have them go to our website because we've partnered up with some nonprofit groups, which is good. They don't charge people to get some advice and to get some help. It's Neighbor Works Housing Solutions and Quincy Community Action Program. And even though it says Quincy, they've committed to help anybody in the 28 communities of Norfolk County. And what I like about them is they give legal advice, because when you're getting foreclosed on, if you're not paying your mortgage, the bank or lender files a lawsuit against you in a court of law. And then they send out a notice to foreclose, which gets recorded at the registry. That's our only involvement at the registry is, by law, they have to file a notice to foreclose. And a lot of people just either ignore the problem or wait till the sheriff's there selling their house. There's a long process, and get the help. If you know anybody, to get that help. So again, on our website, we have links to these, to people who are struggling with foreclosure. And what I also like about these groups, they also have a counseling component. And we're only one bad decision away from being foreclosed on or a bad health situation. But what I like is they sit down with the people and try to get to the root cause as to why these people aren't paying their mortgage. And, is it credit card debt? Are they spending too much on credit cards? And they try to work with people and do that. But back to borrowing the money. We all have to borrow our money, but we pay it off. And one of the issues, and it's in the green folder, there's a sheet in there that says, "Where has my bank gone?" And why do we have that there? A mortgage discharge gets recorded when you pay off your mortgage. And, if you're at the end of the line and it's the last mortgage you're paying off, I'm very happy for you, because it means you have no debt on your house, and that's great. But any time that you've borrowed money, there's a mortgage that's been recorded. Anytime you paid that mortgage off, a mortgage discharge, which is a 1 or 2 page document, should have been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And you might say, well, that's not my responsibility. And you're right. The bank should have done it. The lawyer should have done it. There's a lot of people who should have done it. But when we go to office hours, we go to, Walpole's been great, go down to the Walpole Town Hall, or they let us use the library. When we go to the town halls, a lot of people come in. We've had people come in and say, I'm trying to sell my house. They say I need a mortgage discharge. I paid that off 20 years ago. What's going on? It's just the mortgage discharge never got to the registry. So now they're trying to sell their house, and there's a lawyer involved at the closing saying, hey, listen, the records show you owe this. And maybe you don't, but we need that discharge. And that's why we have that document in the green folder, Where Has My Bank Gone? Because it has state and federal contact information, so you can trace where your bank has gone. Now, I come in, I see I'm a big believer in community banking. I see the sign Walpole Cooperative Bank. If you needed a discharge from the Walpole Cooperative Bank, it's a community bank, local bank. You go down there and you say, hey, I paid this thing off 20 years ago. The bank president's probably around the corner. They sign the discharge, and you just got to take it to the registry. But sometimes Norwood had the Norwood Cooperative Bank, but it also had Union Warren. I had some of my paper route money in Union Warren. I don't even know who Union Warren is now. I think it's Citizens. So that's what I mean. You might have borrowed money from Union Warren or South Boston Savings or Weymouth Savings Bank. Some of them have merged. Some people forget in the 1990s banks went out of business. So that document and that contact information, where has my bank gone, on the website, allows you to kind of track down where your bank went. Because if your bank merged, the people that they merged to still have the responsibility to give you the discharge if it's been paid off. So it takes some paperwork, but I just point that out. And sometimes I've had people, I always tell, I can see people glaze over. It's not the most interesting. We should be talking sports or something, talking documents and discharges. And someone came up to me after one of these and said, you mentioned how people glazed over, talking about getting a mortgage discharge. He goes, keep talking about it, because I wish someone had said it to me, because I had to get a discharge and it took a lot longer. It was a lot of effort, and I wished someone made me aware of that, so that you don't want to be getting that call when you're selling the house, or getting that call when you're refinancing saying, hey, listen, you need a mortgage discharge. And yes.
What happens when one bank sells the mortgage to another bank?
You gotta chase it down, and I tell you, that's one of the we've had some successes. I'm one of 21 registries. Norfolk is the second busiest registry in Massachusetts, so we've had some good luck filing legislation and getting it in. One of the things we haven't had good luck with, because there's interest groups that sometimes don't protect the consumer up there. We've filed a bill on the recorded land side that says, in your situation, if your mortgage gets sold, they should be recording assignments, and it should be mandatory. That way, everyone knows who's doing it. But if it hasn't passed, but it still doesn't limit their responsibility. If that loan got sold, they still have the right. They still have the obligation when you pay it off to get a discharge to you. But I would think, and I would put a plug, and I always do, to the state legislators, if they made it mandatory that when all these notes got sold, that the paperwork and assignment was recorded, it'd be better for the consumer, because you could just look up the information online. Because that's a lot of people come in and say, I know who I'm paying my mortgage to, but I really don't know who's holding it, and they don't have the assignments. But the takeaway is, you have a right to have a mortgage discharge when it's paid off. And I'll say one thing. And we were part of the Registers of Deeds Association, was part of a lawsuit. I'm going to say the bigger banks are doing a better job. The smaller banks always did a nice job. And in fairness to the bigger banks, we've had people come in to office hours, and they're like me, type A. They have all their paperwork. I said, do you mind if I go through? And sure enough, there was a discharge, an original discharge from 20 years ago in their papers. They just never took it to the registry. And I think it's because the banks and the lenders really didn't make it clear to people, you got to take it to the registry and get it recorded for it to be effective. But as far as the bigger banks, they have gotten better for two reasons. One, the Registers of Deeds Association was part of a lawsuit with then Attorney General Martha Coakley. She sued the bigger banks on this very issue. And then the state legislature then jumped in because of this lawsuit and put some teeth into requiring banks to get the discharges to people. So it's just something to be aware of. And I just mention it, because, all of us have borrowed money. And these discharges need to be recorded. You might be saying, well, I borrowed money, but I have another mortgage. Well, that old mortgage, you paid it off. When we refinance, some of us refinance to get a better interest rate. Some of us refinance because we want to go from 30 years to 15 years. Anytime you refinance, those old mortgages should have been discharged. And they were. They were paid off. You just got to make sure that one or two page document gets to the registry and gets recorded. The other issue is homestead. The homestead, again, it's a state law, and that's why I mean, I enjoyed being in the public sector, but I think being Register of Deeds, I think it's an asset to have knowledge of the laws. And lawyers aren't held in high regard, but I would say 9.9 out of 10 attorneys would tell people you should have a homestead recorded. Now, there's some information in the green folder about the homestead. What it is, the state legislators write a law, and the law says that if you own a property as your principal residence, you can declare an estate a homestead. Again, it's a 1 or 2 page form, and you can see it in there. If you're lucky enough, I wasn't lucky enough at 18 to own the property, you can record a homestead. If it's a 2-family and you live in the bottom and it's your and remember, it has to be your principal residence, you can record a homestead. And why would you record a homestead? Oh, and it's in the news. Just in August, it was 500,000. It just went up to $1 million. So, you know, the legislator and the Governor Healy, pushed it. It's, you know, why are they increasing it? Because it's a form of protection. It's a form, as consumers, our biggest asset, as I said earlier, is our house. And here's how it works. I don't play poker, certainly, but a lot of people play poker, so I'm going to use an analogy. If you have a homestead recorded, you know, the bank beats you. Just because you have a homestead recorded, we just talked about it. If you don't pay that bank off, the state law, you know, is the ace. It beats you. They're going to foreclose. The town of Walpole, if you don't pay your taxes, you could have a homestead recorded. You're not going to beat the town. They're going to make sure their taxes get paid. And so people go, well, why should I have a homestead then? I give the example I pulled in here. There were a lot of cars out there. We all think we have a lot of insurance on our cars. Maybe some of you have $100,000. If you hit somebody, you're going to have $100,000 worth of protection. Well, unfortunately, you hit someone in the crosswalk and it's a $450,000 or say $500,000 case. Well, you only have $100,000 worth of insurance. The advocate for that injured party is going to seek compensation. And, you know, they're going to look to your assets. And again, having a homestead means they can't force the sale of your house to satisfy that. They're still going to chase you. They're still going to try to get paid. But if you have a recorded homestead, they cannot force the sale of your house. So just for that reason alone, it's probably worth having a homestead, and hopefully you never use it. Yes, sir.
Can you expand on a time period with the homestead?
Believe it or not, the homestead law has been in place for a long, long time. And I know, because I hate to bring it back to my parents and, you know, growing up in Norwood, they bought the house, they moved, one from Brighton, one from Rosendale. The homestead law was around back then. They never put a homestead on because I don't think anyone knew about it, or you didn't have the access to a lawyer giving you advice, or even the internet. You know, that a lot of people are more on top of things because of the internet. So this homestead law has been around a long, long time. But you can put the homestead on at any time, as long as it's your principal residence. So if you don't have a homestead, you could put one on now. So there's no time requirement. Yes?
If you had a homestead act, how long, do you have to change it, update it, do anything to it, or does it stay forever?
No, that's a good question. But the way they've written the law, once the homestead is recorded, the homestead is good. It's, on that property. And in the past, and we believe it still applies now, you don't have to, keep recording homesteads to get the benefit of the increase. Back some years ago, it was 300,000. Then it went up to 500,000. I just mentioned $1 million that just in this past August. Consumers don't have to keep recording the homestead. You record it once, and you get the benefit of the law, and it runs with the property. Where the homestead is not good is, just say you're in a bigger house in Walpole here, and you sell the house and you move to the condominium. That homestead no longer protects you. You now have a new piece of property. You have to record a homestead on your new principal residence, which is the condominium. So that's the only thing. And there's been changes to the law. One good thing about having a homestead recorded, there's little hidden protections. For instance, if you go to sell your home, your proceeds to your sale of the house are protected for a limited period of time, 1 year, if you have a recorded homestead, so that creditors can't swoop in and get the proceeds of your home. Or just say your house here in Walpole, maybe you had a fire and you got a check from the insurance company. If you have a homestead recorded, your creditors can't swoop in and try to get that money when it hits your bank account, again, for a limited period of time of 2 years. So they have these little laws so you can rebuild the house. So it's really good to have a homestead. Yes?
Where I lived before, I had a Homestead Act. Where I live now, I don't think I have it. Is there any way of checking these,
Yes. First of all, you could do it on your own, but that's why we have our staff here afterwards. You can go and they can check and check your homestead to check to see if you have one. And actually, we're at not that long ago Medfield office hours. The gentleman came in, and again, the homestead's a 2-page document. The people that own it, that's been another change. Before, it could just be one spouse signed and it was good. Now, whoever owns the property has to sign it on it. Like, so if I own the property with my wife and I have to sign it in front of a notary. Well, this gentleman came in, he just owned the property by himself. He had the homestead notarized, ready to pay, and the filing fee is only $36. It's relatively low compared to, believe me, the state legislature has upped all the fees at the registry, but not that one. And the point I'm making is we looked it up for him. We said, you already have a homestead. So some people forget they recorded one or it was so long ago, but we can check. Yes.
I have another question. When my husband passed away, does that mean I have to go in and change the Homestead Act?
No, the homestead should still be good. Under the old law, and we've had this, I don't mean to keep going back to stories at office hours, but a person came in, same situation, husband had died, the homestead was in the husband's name. The law was back then, if the homestead was signed by one spouse, it benefited the other spouse. So, we tell them, you don't have to do another homestead, save your money. But I agreed with what she did. She says, I might have the homestead because my husband did that. I want something in my name. So she did it in her name. Now, legally, she didn't have to, but some people, it's the comfort level. She just wanted to have something in her name that said that she was protected. Yes.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
My partner James and I own our house together, so we're not married. Does that mean we have, and I know we have a homestead, but I forgot. Does he have $1 million for his name and I have $1 million under my name, or is it $1 million?
There's different versions on that. The good news is you got $1 million because of the new change in the statute. Some of us as attorneys argue that it can be stacked when you're elderly. There's an elderly homestead. I think the takeaway should be this: just to get it recorded. Some attorneys take the position, no, it's just $1 million in total. Others, especially if you're over 62, I don't define elderly. Elderly is defined by the state legislature as 62 and above. And back before this law changed, there was, on the elderly, there was some indications that you could stack it. If you were both over 62, when it was 500 and 500, you could stack it as $1 million. I'm hoping that that applies to the $1 million and the $1 million. But the takeaway is, get something, get it recorded. Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, years ago, we had a homestead. I think it was maybe 2011, and, we're just plodding along in our life. And apparently, right around that time, we refinanced with the same bank. So fast forward 10 years later, I go to my attorney, we set up a will and on. And he said, do you have a homestead? I said, oh yeah, we have a homestead. So he checked into it and he said, you don't have a homestead. I said, oh yes we do. He goes, oh no you don't. Because when we refinanced, he said the bank should have. I said, the bank didn't tell me. He said that was a if you think you have one, if you refinanced years ago, there was, you know more about it than me.
I was just going to get to it. Stealing my thunder. No. No, great question. And again, going back to, I said some of the law changes that have been unsuccessful, like the assignment one, but there have been some successes. And this is one of the laws that the registers kind of push for. And the details of this, and she was right. When my children were younger and you're trying to position things in high school, when they're in high school that they're going to college, I had a great local bank, great rate. No one reads the 30 pages. And there's a one sentence in there that's basically terminates your homestead. Now, some lawyers say, oh, it only terminates it with respect to this one bank. And I was like, could you take it out? And they have lawyers, and they're like, we can't take it out. And what I used to do was I refinanced, I did it a few times, and then put another homestead on. And you might say, why did you do it? It's what this lady was saying. In the 30 pages, there was one sentence that terminated your homestead. And when we talk about why it's worth sometimes fighting up at that state house, because you got to remember there's always an interest group that doesn't want to protect consumers. That's one of the changes they made. And it was on March 16th, 2011, a change went into effect. And the change was this, that if your mortgage, your refinance, has that language in that killed your homestead, it doesn't kill your homestead. But I always tell people March 16th, 2011, because, just say in 2017, you put your homestead on, and in 2018 you refinanced, and it had the language in that terminated your homestead. The statute says that doesn't terminate your homestead. But the problem for me, and that's why when I come to groups like this, I always tell people, you got to remember the date, March 16, 2011. That's when the statute went into effect. So if you refinanced before March 16, 2011, just like you found out, it in essence killed your homestead. And again, I got around it. I mean, and that's, I was fortunate enough to be an attorney. I just kept recording a new homestead. Now, I've never needed to use it. We don't have lawsuits or debts or things like that are going on. But I didn't want to chance someone saying, 20 years, hey, when you refinance, when your kids were going to college 10 years ago, your homestead was terminated. That's why I put another one on. Now you don't have to. But again, remember that March 16, 2011, because, you're all set if your actions, your legal documents got recorded after March 16, 2011. So, that's a good point to make. Yes?
I just put my condo in trust with my brother. I'm sorry, can you speak up?
I'll repeat the question. Yeah, go ahead.
If I just put my, on my will, I have my brother as in a trust, all my stuff in a trust. Is that going to affect?
The good news, I always tell people, and back to that March 16, 2011, the legislature made some changes. Before, you couldn't, if you had a property in trust, you couldn't put a homestead on. And because there was a case that said only people can put homesteads on, only individuals, and a trust isn't an individual. Well, the legislature changed that. So you do have, and again, it depends. Remember, it has to be your principal residence. And, a lot of times the beneficiaries aren't living there, but sometimes they are. So I always tell people, if you took the time and expense to go to somebody, an attorney or a counselor, to get, some estate planning, go back to them if you have any questions. But now you can, if you have the property in trust, and again, you have to meet certain prerequisites of the law, a principal residence, you have a right to record a homestead. So again, it was because of a change in the law. And that's a good thing. Again, we try to make the registry relevant. It's been around since 1793, but that's why we do the consumer notification service. That's why we have the documents online. You can come by the registry if you want. We have a customer service center. We have 50 computers that are open to the public. We also, because of that, history comes alive, and you can tell I like history. We also have a bank of computers there that have access to Ancestry.com if you're interested in that. It's free access, so people can kind of do some research instead of, I think it's probably better at some point if you are interested, like I've been, you end up getting your own subscription because you can, there's so much to it. But, at the registry, we not only have, historical documents from the land point of view, but we do have access to Ancestry.com. And some of the consumer issues, if you have any questions, we can take it. Or if you need to look up information, we have Ed and Jonathan here today. You can, if you need a copy of your deed, or you have a question whether you have a homestead, or if you just want to check on your mortgage discharges that they've been discharged. And again, remember, an equity line is a mortgage. A lot of people say, I never used the equity line. If you have an equity line and you're not going to use it anymore, or you have a new equity line, make sure those old equity lines have also been discharged, because even though they say equity line, it's a lien against your property, it's a mortgage, and even if you didn't use it and you're done using it, you should get a discharge from the institution just to clean that up as well. But you've been a great crowd, a lot of great questions, enjoyed seeing people, but thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yes.